August is Kindergarten Readiness Month, and for parents, that first day can be just as nerve-wracking as it is exciting. Now, joining us this morning is Dr. Catherine Roberts at Wayne State University's College of Education.
Yeah, she's here to help you make that transition a little bit smoother for you and your loved ones. All right, let's talk about the first day. How should we be preparing our kids?
I think the biggest thing is to stay positive and assume that they're going to love it because they're following your lead. The kids are picking up on your vibes, and if you're projecting that you're worried about starting kindergarten or that you're nervous about if they'll be okay, then they'll assume that there's something to be worried about. But if you stay really positive about it, they'll assume that they're in for something great.
Yeah, got to stay positive for that first day. It's supposed to be an exciting time.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, an exciting time for a lot of kindergartners out there, but if maybe somebody's kiddo is at home already kind of a little nervous, getting those jitters, what advice would you give to parents to help them overcome that ahead of the first day of school?
Well, first of all, to assure their kids that that's really normal. People get nervous when they try new things and that that's okay. So we don't necessarily want to minimize it and say, oh, you don't have to be nervous, because they are nervous and that's fair. Adults are nervous too when we try new things. Talking through what to expect is really helpful. So for example, you can tell them that they're going to get on the bus at home and then they'll get off at school and someone will walk them to their classroom. You can tell them that they'll be with their teacher most of the day, but somebody else might take them to lunch, and so on. And I would say, relatedly, as much as you can, it's helpful to keep the school day the way it's going to be moving forward. And I know this is really hard for parents, but if your child is going to ride the bus, it's really great if you can let them ride the bus on the first day too, even if that means you're going to meet them there to take pictures when they get off. And if they're riding the bus home, I would recommend the same thing from day one, because otherwise they have to learn a new routine the second day of school or the second week of school. By the same logic, if they're going to aftercare, even if they're not going to stay there the whole time the first few days, let them make that transition and then pick them up. It really just saves kids the confusion and stress of having to learn routines and then learn a new routine a week in.
You're talking a lot about routine, right? How do we get into one of those good routines? How do we stick with it? How do we stay consistent? Because I feel like consistency is going to be the key here.
Yeah, I would say that that's a huge piece of what families can do at home to support their kids in school, is just maintaining that normal home environment and kind of steadying the ship, keeping everything else as normal as you can, which is really hard. I know, coming off of summer, I know in my own house with my own kids, we kind of we lose the routine in the summer in lots of fun ways, and getting back into it is a little bit tough. I do know some families that practice the first day of school, like getting up and getting dressed, only instead of going to school, they go and get donuts and coffee and then go sit on the school playground so that they have an idea of what it feels like to get ready in the morning. So that's one thing that you can do. Um, but really, it is a hard transition because the school year is different than summer. So think it through and think through what you want to do and try to start doing that from the beginning. And if you have to tweak it as you go, it's fine.
I was going to say, yeah, that's something that me and my parents used to do. Like, when I remember, like, getting
Oh.
up, doing the routine, like acting like we're going to go to school, and then we would just go drive by the school. That way I knew where I was going, and that way I could see the building. And so it wasn't as stressful for me as a
Yeah.
kid growing up. So
It absolutely makes sense. Also, when we're talking about going back to school, I feel like that tiredness, the getting up in the morning,
my
is
gosh.
always such a big obstacle and maybe a big stressor too, heading into the school year. So how can parents help their kids to make sure that they're not just getting up on time, but maybe getting up and feeling refreshed?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Kids are just like us. Some of them just aren't morning people. But I think giving them enough time to do that. And I think remembering that even when kids aren't physically exhausted, they're coming home every day that first week mentally exhausted, because they're doing all day long, learning new things, being on high alert for new routines and new friends and all of those things. And it can be really exhausting. So I would say, as much as you can, just try to keep things as relaxed as you can and keep a consistent bedtime at home. And keep in mind that it's normal when they come home that exhausted to just absolutely melt down. They're in their safe space. They're going to do it. They've been holding it together all day long. And it doesn't mean they hate school. It means they're tired. And my number one tip for that first week of school and kids' exhaustion is, as tempting as it is to celebrate the end of the first week of school with something like going out to dinner, don't do it. your kids are so tired, and holding it together in a restaurant is that's a risky proposition that you're putting out there. So I would say instead, maybe think like family movie party, everybody in their pajamas at 5, you might have much more luck.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? Then they can fall asleep silently in the corner and with no judgment or fear that, that they have to be on for that family
Yeah.
dinner. In this week leading up to school, so here in West Michigan, a couple of schools start going back next week and then so on and so forth as the month continues on. When we're looking ahead to the first day of school, we have a lot of new open house events at the school that your child might be attending. How important are those events? I mean, obviously this gets the kids in the door to kind of acclimate them to the start of a new school year. So in your opinion, how would you think that those are important for a family and a student?
Those are great for kids, and if you can make it there and they can meet their teacher, that is fantastic. I also want to recognize that often that last week before school starts in any given area is the week that has the least childcare and camps during the day, and so parents are doing some creative things to manage childcare that last very stressful week. I will say that my own children loved that, like, popsicles on the playground, meet your teacher stuff that we did. They loved that. But we couldn't do it every year, and my kids turned out just fine. So great if you can do it. Wonderful to meet the teachers. But if you can't do it, you can still do things like go to the school, see the playground. There might be a time you can go when it's open and walk them to their classroom, those kinds of things. So getting familiar with the school is really important. Great if you can make it to meet the teacher night. It is not going to ruin your child if you can't.
Absolutely. Now, another way of kind of preparing your kids to heading back to school is not just all the things we can do before school starts, but also preparing them how maybe they can behave in school once they get into the school year. And I know you talk a lot too about teaching kids how to advocate for themselves. So what does that look like for kindergartners?
Yeah, so for a lot of kindergartners, they haven't been in a space where there are that many children. They've often been at home or they've been in smaller settings. And so it's important to teach them to advocate for themselves when they need to and just practice it. So talk them through it. So, like, what do you do if you need to go to the bathroom? Well, you tell an adult. What do you do if you aren't sure about the instructions? How do you ask? How do you raise your hand? What do you do if you get hurt or you don't feel well? And just practicing some of those scripts, like saying things like, I don't feel well, or my stomach hurts, or can I please go to the bathroom, are things that are new for kids. They aren't hard to learn, but if you spend a little time talking about it in advance, kids are prepared with that when they go in and have less anxiety and a little more success.
Yeah, even just making sure that they're aware that, hey, they can speak up if they need something or if something is wrong. Absolutely. We've done a lot of talking about the kids themselves. Let's talk about the parents, because if you are a parent of a kindergarten or a first-time kindergartner, this has got to be kind of an interesting, maybe nerve-wracking experience for some of those parents. How would you recommend parents navigate these first couple of days or maybe even weeks of school as maybe their first kids are having their first moments at school?
First of all, if all of your kids happen to be going out the door, treat yourself to a nice cup of coffee with nobody interrupting you. Take a moment. Yes, you miss them, but missing them isn't going to bring them back home, but you can still have a nice cup of coffee by yourself. And I will also say, to kind of calm your own anxiety, realize that those kindergarten teachers, lunchroom workers, bus drivers, all of the people, the secretaries, the administrators, the custodians, they all know what they're doing. This is not their first rodeo. If your kid is getting school lunch for the first time on the first day of school, every worker in that cafeteria, lunch attendants, people who are serving the food, know that there are kids who are coming in who don't know how to do that, and they're going to help them. If your kiddo is riding the bus on the first day and they're getting off the bus at the school, every employee in that building is like on duty that day to get kids to the classrooms they belong in. Not only the kindergartners, but all of the kids, because lots of kids are new and need to make their way there. They're not going to lose your child. Everybody's going to make it. I will say one of the most nerve-wracking things is that if you do have a child who rides a bus or even who's a car rider, remember that things are going to be slower the first few days, and try to be patient with the people who are managing that process, because what they're trying to do is keep everybody safe, make sure that everybody gets where they're supposed to be. And those first few days or even couple weeks, it just takes longer to make sure that kids are feeling comfortable and they're getting where they need to be. So grant a little grace. But in general, all of these people who are working at schools and working with your children are there because they want to help them succeed. And this is not the first time they've seen a new kindergartner.
Yeah, it might just take a couple of days to get them off on the right foot, but they always figure it out. I feel like we do hear about those hiccups in the first couple of days,
Yeah.
especially trying to get under a new school year. So yeah, I like that advice, how you put that.
Yeah, I know that when I was younger, even first week or so of school, it would be, oh, I took the wrong bus.
Right,
So
exactly.
there's always all of those little
Or it's running a little bit
snags.
late,
Exactly. Yeah. And of course, all of these staff members, everybody on faculty is well prepared for the school year to start. And of course, having faith that those school members and those faculty members are really going to have things under control is huge. But what questions should parents ask to their children's teachers in the lead up to the new school year?
I think parents should ask whatever is going to make them feel comfortable. In most cases, schools will have contacted families with the most important information, like will your child be riding the bus or going to aftercare or walking home or being picked up, those sorts of things. Will they be buying lunch? Will they be packing lunch? But even if those details are not communicated somehow, nobody's going to go without lunch. Nobody's going to have to spend the night at school and never get home. So they're going to take care of that kind of thing. But I think keep the communication open. Ask the teachers anything that you're worried about or your child is worried about or you have questions about. Grant a little grace because they are, during the day in particular, in charge of taking care of 25 or so little humans. And so they're probably not answering email. So we need to give them a little bit of time to respond, especially that first week, recognizing that they're prioritizing the safety of your child.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've covered a lot of information in the last 10 minutes. If you were to give like your one piece of advice to both a new kindergartner and also a parent here heading into a new school year, what would you say that would be?
I would say for a new parent heading into the new school year, I would say that kindergarten is the best. It's by far my favorite experience that kids have. It's magical. They only get to start at that big kid school one time and they're going to love it. And I would say for families to understand that that first week or two is going to be stressful, but they're going to find their new normal and look around at all the people who have kids who are in elementary school who are surviving and thriving just fine.
I would also suggest just enjoy it, right? This is supposed to be a happy, productive time for the family too. So maybe just enjoy it and watch the ride happen.
Yeah.
Dr. Roberts, we appreciate your time this morning. Thank you so much for your insight.
Thank you.